Before you place your next trade, you need to hear this. Every trader wants control, but control is what destroys them. You felt that panic. The chart moves against you, and your brain whispers, "Do something. Anything." Your finger hovers over the mouse, your heart pounds. The market doesn't care about your mortgage payment, your dreams, or the promise you made to yourself this morning. It just moves. And in that moment, you're not trading the market is trading you. You're not broken. Your brain is just wired for survival, not for profit. Today, you'll finally understand why your brain trades against you. And more importantly, you'll learn how I rewired mine to stay calm when everyone else panics. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that 3 years ago, I was exactly where you are now, staring at red numbers, feeling that familiar knot in my stomach, wondering if I was cut out for this game. I thought discipline meant gritting my teeth and forcing myself to follow rules. I was wrong. Discipline isn't about control, it's about understanding. Understanding the invisible war happening inside your skull every time you see a setup. Let me show you what I discovered. The moment you understand this, everything changes. Picture your last losing trade. Feel that familiar sting. Your account balance drops, and something ancient awakens in your brain. It's the same alarm system that kept your ancestors alive when they heard rustling in the bushes. Except now, instead of a saber-toothed tiger, it's a red candle. Your amygdala, that almond-sized cluster of neurons buried deep in your brain, doesn't know the difference. It just knows threat. It floods your system with cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate spikes, your vision narrows, your rational mind, housed in the prefrontal cortex, goes offline. This is where most traders make their fatal mistake. They try to fight this system. They think willpower is enough. But you can't fight millions of years of evolution with a motivational quote and a sticky note on your monitor. Here's what's really happening. When you see that loss, your brain creates what neuroscientists call an emotional memory. It's not just stored as data. It's stored with the full emotional weight of that moment. The frustration, the fear, the shame. Every future trade now carries this invisible baggage. Your brain starts pattern matching. Red candle equals danger. Drawdown equals failure. The market becomes your predator, and you become its prey. You're not weak for feeling this way. You're human. Professional traders on Wall Street have the same wiring. The difference isn't in their genes. It's in their training. They've learned to work with their brain, not against it. So how do you trade when your instincts want to destroy you? The answer isn't what you think. It's not about becoming emotionless. It's not about pretending losses don't hurt. It's about rewiring the very pathways that create those destructive responses. And the science shows us exactly how to do it. Take a breath. Because what comes next might change how you see the market forever. Neuroplasticity. It's the brain's ability to reorganize itself, to form new neural connections, to literally rewire its circuits based on experience and practice. For decades, scientists believed adult brains were fixed, set in stone by age 25. We now know that's completely false. Your brain is changing right now as you read these words. The question isn't whether it will change. The question is how you'll direct that change. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every action you take is strengthening certain neural pathways while weakening others. When you panic after a loss, you're strengthening the panic pathway. When you revenge trade, you're deepening the groove of impulsive behavior. When you close trades early out of fear, you're training your brain to associate fear with action. But here's the beautiful part. You can consciously choose which pathways to strengthen. You can literally sculpt your brain into the mind of a consistently profitable trader. The process isn't mysterious. It's systematic. It's based on solid neuroscience, and it works. Let me tell you about George Soros, one of the greatest traders who ever lived. He made billions by developing what he called his gut feeling. But here's what most people don't know. Soros didn't trust his gut blindly. He trained it. When he felt physical discomfort, particularly backaches, he knew something was wrong with his portfolio. His body had become a finely tuned instrument for reading market stress. He had literally rewired his nervous system to give him trading signals. This isn't mystical, it's neurological. When you're in a state of chronic stress from bad trades, your body remembers, your posture changes, your breathing becomes shallow, your muscles tense. Most traders ignore these signals or see them as weaknesses. Soros saw them as data. He had trained his brain to interpret physical sensations as market intelligence. You can do the same thing, but first you need to understand the enemy you're fighting. It's not the market. It's not other traders. It's not bad luck or manipulation. It's the ancient survival programming running in the background of your mind. Your brain has three main systems that control trading behavior. The first is the reptilian brain, pure survival instinct, fight, flight, or freeze. When this system takes control, you're not making trading decisions, you're making survival decisions. The second is the limbic system. This is where emotions live: fear, greed, hope, regret. These emotions served our ancestors well when hunting mammoth. They'll destroy your trading count. The third system is the neocortex, your rational, analytical mind. This is where good trading decisions come from. But here's the problem. Under stress, the reptilian brain hijacks the whole system. Your rational mind goes offline, and you're running on pure instinct. Think about your worst trading day. You probably remember it vividly. Not just the numbers, but the feelings. The sick feeling in your stomach. The way your hands shook as you clicked the mouse. The desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, the trade would turn around. Your reptilian brain was in full control. You weren't thinking. You were reacting. This is the hidden loop that destroys traders. Loss triggers fear. Fear triggers action. Action creates more loss. More loss creates more fear. Round and round, until your account is gone and you're wondering what happened. But what if I told you this loop isn't permanent? What if I told you that with the right training you could break free from it completely? What if losing trades could actually make you calmer, more focused, more profitable? That's exactly what happened to me. But the journey wasn't what I expected. I thought I needed to become fearless. I was wrong. I needed to become fear-aware. I needed to rewire my brain's response to fear itself. The moment you notice the impulse, you've already gained control. Most traders never reach this point. They're too busy fighting their emotions to study them, too busy trying to be right to learn from being wrong, too busy looking at charts to look at themselves. But the traders who survive, who thrive, who compound small accounts into life-changing wealth, they all learn the same secret. The market isn't the game. Your mind is the game. Master the mind and the market becomes simple. You click, you wait, you hope, you panic, you close, you regret. You promise to do better next time, but next time feels exactly the same. The emotions are identical. The mistakes are identical. Only the numbers change. This is the trader's hell. Groundhog Day with candlesticks. I lived in this hell for 2 years. Every morning I'd wake up determined to trade with discipline. Every evening I'd go to bed disgusted with myself. I had all the right strategies. I understood risk management. I could read charts better than most. But I couldn't read myself. I couldn't predict my own behavior under pressure. The turning point came on a Tuesday morning in March. I had just closed a position for a small loss. Nothing dramatic. Just a routine stop-out. But something was different. Instead of immediately looking for the next trade, I sat back. I closed my eyes. I noticed my breathing was shallow. My shoulders were tense. My jaw was clenched. For the first time, I was observing my stress response instead of being consumed by it. That moment of observation created space. Space between the trigger and the reaction. Space where choice lives. In that space, I realized something profound. I wasn't a victim of my emotions. I was their student. They had been trying to teach me something, but I had been too busy fighting them to listen. Fear wasn't my enemy. Fear was information. It was telling me that I cared about the outcome more than the process. Anger wasn't a weakness. It was telling me that I had expectations the market couldn't meet. Frustration wasn't failure. It was telling me that I was trying to control something uncontrollable. This revelation changed everything. But it was just the beginning. Understanding the problem isn't the same as solving it. I still had to retrain my brain. I still had to build new neural pathways. I still had to practice responding differently to the same old triggers. The process took months. Not because it's complicated, but because it's gradual. Neuroplasticity works slowly, consistently, like water carving through stone. Each time I caught myself in an emotional reaction, I had a choice. React automatically, strengthening the old pathway, or pause, breathe, and choose a different response, strengthening a new one. Discipline isn't control. It's trust. Trust in your process. Trust in your preparation. Trust in your ability to respond rather than react. Most traders try to control the market. They try to control the outcome of each trade. They try to control their emotions through force. This creates internal conflict. Fighting yourself is exhausting, and exhausted traders make terrible decisions. Terrible decisions. The real breakthrough came when I stopped trying to eliminate emotions and started studying them like market data. I began keeping what I called an emotion journal alongside my trading journal. Not just what I felt, but when I felt it, what triggered it, how long it lasted, what actions it led to. The patterns were shocking. I discovered that my worst trades always follow the same emotional sequence. First came the trigger, a missed entry, a small loss. Sometimes just seeing someone else's winning screenshot on social media. Then came the cascade. My breathing would change, my posture would shift, my risk tolerance would expand. Within minutes, I'd be placing trades that violated every rule I'd written. But here's what changed everything. I noticed that between the trigger and the cascade, there was always a moment. A split second where I felt the emotion rising but hadn't yet acted on it. That moment was my window, my chance to choose a different path. Most traders never find this window because they're moving too fast. They're reacting to the market instead of responding to it. They're trading their emotions instead of trading their edge. But when you slow down enough to notice that moment, you gain access to something powerful, choice. The science backs this up perfectly. Neuroscientists call it the response flexibility gap. It's the space between stimulus and response where conscious choice lives. Viktor Frankl, who survived the concentration camps, said it best. Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. In trading terms, this means between the chart pattern and your mouse click, there's a space. Between the loss and your next trade, there's a space. Between the fear and the action, there's a space. Learning to find that space and use it wisely is what separates consistently profitable traders from everyone else. But finding the space is just the beginning. You still have to train yourself to use it. This is where most traders give up. They expect immediate results. They want to read one book, watch one video, and suddenly become emotionally bulletproof. That's not how the brain works. Think of it like building muscle. You don't go to the gym once and expect to bench press twice your body weight. You start small, you're consistent, you gradually increase the load, your muscles adapt, they get stronger. The same process works for emotional control. You start with small trades, small emotions, small choices. You practice responding instead of reacting. Gradually, your emotional muscles get stronger. I started with micro practices. Before each trade, I'd take 3 deep breaths. Not because breathing is magical, but because it forced me to slow down. It created space between my analysis and my action. In that space, I could ask myself a simple question. Am I trading my edge, or am I trading my emotions? The question itself was transformative. It forced me to pause, to check in with myself, to notice what was driving my decision. Fear, greed, boredom, revenge, or was it genuine opportunity based on my predefined criteria? At first, I was trading my emotions about 70% of the time. The honest answer hurt. But awareness is the first step toward change. You can't fix what you don't acknowledge. You can't rewire patterns you don't recognize. Week by week, the ratio began to shift. 60% emotions, 40% edge, then 50-50, then the breakthrough. More edge than emotion, more process than impulse, more response than reaction. My trading results followed the same trajectory. Better risk management, more consistent profits, lower stress levels. The most surprising discovery was that profitable trading felt boring. Not boring like watching paint dry. Boring like breathing. Natural, effortless, automatic. When you're no longer fighting yourself, trading becomes surprisingly simple. You wait for your setups. You execute with predetermined size. You manage the trade according to your plan. You accept whatever outcome the market delivers. This doesn't mean you become emotionless. Emotions still arise. The difference is that you no longer confuse emotions with instructions. Fear doesn't automatically mean close the position. Excitement doesn't automatically mean increase the size. Frustration doesn't automatically mean force a trade. Emotions become information, not commands. The transformation wasn't just in my trading results. It was in my relationship with uncertainty itself. Most people hate uncertainty. They crave predictability, control. guaranteed outcomes, but uncertainty is the only constant in markets. Fighting it is like fighting the tide, exhausting and ultimately futile. I learned to dance with uncertainty instead of wrestling with it, to find comfort in the uncomfortable, to make peace with not knowing what comes next. This shift in perspective was profound. When you're no longer demanding certainty from an uncertain world, stress decreases dramatically. Professional poker players understand this instinctively. They know that any single hand means nothing. What matters is playing each hand optimally over thousands of iterations. They've trained themselves to be outcome independent. They focus on making the best decision with available information, then let the probabilities play out. Trading requires the same mindset. You can execute a perfect trade and lose money. You can break every rule and get lucky. Short-term results are largely random. Long-term results are entirely dependent on process quality. This is why emotional detachment is so crucial. When you're attached to individual outcomes, you lose sight of the bigger picture. I remember the exact trade that taught me this lesson. It was a textbook setup, perfect risk-reward ratio, clear entry signal, appropriate position size, everything by the book. The trade lost, not because my analysis was wrong, but because the market had other plans. Old me would have been devastated, would have questioned everything, would have probably revenge traded to make it back. New me felt something different. Satisfaction. I had executed my process flawlessly. The outcome was irrelevant. I was building the habits that would make me profitable over time. One trade means nothing. 100 trades mean everything. This is when I truly understood what George Soros meant by developing gut feelings. He wasn't talking about mystical intuition. He was talking about pattern recognition that happens below conscious awareness. When you've seen enough setups, enough market conditions, enough emotional traps, your unconscious mind starts recognizing patterns before your conscious mind catches up. But here's the crucial part. You can't develop reliable gut feelings while your emotions are in chaos. Stress clouds perception. Fear distorts analysis. Greed creates blind spots. Only when you've trained yourself to remain calm under pressure can you access the deeper intelligence that experienced traders call intuition. The brain research supports this completely. When you're in a state of chronic stress, the hippocampus literally shrinks. This is the part of your brain responsible for learning and memory formation. Meanwhile, the amygdala grows larger and more reactive. You become worse at learning from experience and better at panicking over minor threats. The opposite happens when you learn to regulate emotions effectively. The prefrontal cortex strengthens. This is your brain's executive center. Better planning, better impulse control, better decision-making under pressure. The hippocampus recovers and grows. You get better at forming accurate memories and learning from experience. This isn't theory. This is measurable brain change that can be tracked with modern imaging technology. Traders who learn emotional regulation literally develop different brain structures than those who don't. They're not just better traders, they're using a fundamentally different operating system. The training process isn't complicated, but it does require consistency. Like physical exercise, sporadic effort produces sporadic results. Daily practice creates lasting change. I developed a routine that I followed religiously for 6 months. The results were remarkable, but the real transformation happened in month 4. That's when the new patterns became automatic, when emotional control shifted from conscious effort to unconscious competence. The routine was simple. Each morning before market open, I'd spend 10 minutes in what I called emotional preparation. Not meditation exactly, though it shared some similarities. I'd visualize different market scenarios, a big winner, a big loser, a sideways grind, a news event that moved against me. For each scenario, I'd practice my ideal response. Not just mentally, but physically. How would I sit? How would I breathe? What would I say to myself? This mental rehearsal was incredibly powerful. When similar situations occurred in real trading, I had already practiced my response hundreds of times. Instead of reacting from a place of surprise and stress, I was responding from a place of preparation and calm. After market close, I'd spend another 10 minutes in reflection, not just reviewing trades, but reviewing emotional responses. What triggered me today? How did I handle it? What could I do better tomorrow? This wasn't self-criticism, it was data collection. I was studying my own patterns with the same objectivity I'd used to study chart patterns. The combination of preparation and reflection created a feedback loop that accelerated my development. I was no longer hoping to stumble into better habits. I was systematically building them. The breakthrough happened gradually, then all at once, like watching a sunrise. You don't notice the sky changing minute by minute, but suddenly the world is bright and you realize darkness has lifted. Month 4 was different. I started waking up excited about trading. Not because I was winning every trade, I wasn't, but because I was winning the game that mattered most, the game inside my head. Each morning felt like an opportunity to practice, to refine, to strengthen the neural pathways I was building. The old patterns were still there. Fear still whispered when trades moved against me. Greed still tugged when profits appeared. But these voices had lost their power to control my actions. They had become background noise, like traffic outside your window, present but ignorable. This is what neuroscientists call the default mode network. It's your brain's screensaver, the mental chatter that runs when you're not actively focused. For most traders, this chatter is destructive. Worry about losses, fantasies about wins, second-guessing every decision. But you can train this network, you can choose what plays in the background of your mind. I started feeding my default mode network with different content. Instead of replaying mistakes, I replayed perfect executions. Instead of imagining worst-case scenarios, I visualized calm responses to volatility. Instead of fighting my emotions, I practiced observing them with curiosity. The change was subtle but profound. Between trades, my mind would drift to process review instead of profit obsession. During drawdowns, I'd automatically think about risk management instead of account recovery. When opportunities appeared, I'd instinctively check my criteria instead of rushing to enter. This mental shift created something unexpected. Boredom. Good boredom. The kind that comes from mastery. When you've practiced something so thoroughly that it becomes second nature. Professional athletes talk about this feeling. Musicians describe it too. The moment when technique becomes invisible and performance flows naturally. Most traders never reach this state because they mistake excitement for skill. They think profitable trading should feel thrilling, should provide constant adrenaline, should make them feel alive with every tick. This is backwards thinking. Excitement in trading usually means you're risking too much. Taking too much risk means you're trading your emotions, not your edge. The calmest traders are often the most profitable, not because they don't care about money, but because they've learned to separate process from outcome. They've trained their nervous system to remain stable regardless of what the market delivers. Think about a surgeon. Would you want someone operating on you who gets excited by every cut, who panics when complications arise, who celebrates before the operation is complete? Of course not. You want someone who remains calm, focused, methodical. Someone who trusts their training more than their feelings. Trading requires the same mentality. You're performing surgery on your own financial future. Every decision matters. Every emotional reaction can cause damage. The steadier your hands, the better your results. But steadiness isn't natural. It's trained, and the training never really ends. Even now, years later, I still practice emotional regulation daily. Not because I haven't mastered it, but because mastery requires maintenance. The brain is like a garden. Without constant tending, weeds grow back. Old patterns reassert themselves. Neural pathways you thought were dead start firing again. This isn't failure, it's biology. The solution isn't perfection, it's consistent cultivation. I learned this lesson the hard way during my second year of Rewired trading. I had been consistently profitable for 8 months. My confidence was high. My stress levels were low. I thought I had conquered my emotional demons forever. Then came the crash. Not a market crash, a personal one. Life outside of trading threw me a curveball. A family emergency that demanded my attention for weeks. When I returned to my charts, everything felt different. My calm was gone. My process felt foreign. My emotional reactions were as sharp as ever. At first, I was devastated. Had I lost everything I'd built? Was emotional control just temporary? Was I back to square one? The questions tormented me more than the actual trading struggles. Then I remembered something crucial. Neuroplasticity works both ways. Just as you can build beneficial patterns, you can lose them through neglect. But you can also rebuild them faster the second time. The neural pathways were still there. They just needed reactivation. I went back to basics. Morning preparation, evening reflection, breath awareness, emotional journaling. Within 3 weeks, my equilibrium returned. But something had changed. I was no longer afraid of losing my emotional control. I knew I could rebuild it whenever necessary. This realization was liberating. Emotional mastery isn't a destination you reach once and inhabit forever. It's a practice you return to daily. Like physical fitness, it requires ongoing attention. But like physical fitness, it becomes easier to maintain once you understand the process. The science confirms this beautifully. Brain imaging studies show that meditation practitioners don't just develop thicker prefrontal cortices, they develop more flexible ones. They can shift between different mental states more easily. They can access calm when needed, focus when required, creativity when appropriate. This flexibility is what separates great traders from good ones. Good traders have one mode, usually stress-based. They're either panicking or celebrating. Great traders have multiple modes. They can shift between analytical thinking and intuitive feeling, between patient waiting and decisive action, between confident execution and humble reflection. Most importantly, they can access these modes consciously. They're not at the mercy of whatever emotional state happens to arise. They can choose their mental state based on what the situation requires. Imagine having this level of control. You're in a losing trade, but instead of panicking, you shift into analytical mode. You review your criteria, you check your risk management, you make a calm decision based on probability, not emotion. The loss still stings, but it doesn't derail your entire day. Or you spot a perfect setup, but instead of rushing in with excitement, you shift into patient mode. You wait for precise entry. You calculate position size carefully. You set your stop and target before entering. The trade may or may not work, but you've given yourself the best possible chance. This isn't theoretical. This is how I trade now. Every day, in all market conditions. The external chaos hasn't changed. Markets still move unpredictably. News still creates volatility. Other traders still act emotionally. But my internal response has transformed completely. The transformation shows up in unexpected places. My sleep improved. When you're not carrying the emotional weight of bad trades to bed, rest comes easier. My relationship strengthened. When you're not stressed about money constantly, you're more present with people who matter. My general anxiety decreased. When you've learned to handle market uncertainty, life's smaller uncertainties feel manageable. These benefits compound over time. Better sleep leads to better decision-making. Better relationships provide emotional support. Lower anxiety improves focus. Everything connects. Emotional regulation in trading becomes emotional regulation in life. But the most profound change was in my relationship with failure itself. I stopped seeing losses as personal attacks, stopped viewing mistakes as character flaws, stopped interpreting setbacks as permanent verdicts. Failure became data. Mistakes became teachers. Setbacks became setups for comebacks. This shift in perspective is perhaps the most valuable skill any trader can develop. Because in this game, failure is inevitable. Losses are guaranteed. Mistakes are part of the process. If you can't make peace with these realities, trading will torture you regardless of your technical skills. I think about the traders who quit. Not because they couldn't read charts, not because they didn't understand risk management, but because they couldn't handle the emotional demands of the profession. They had the technical knowledge but lacked the psychological resilience. You wanted control. Now you've found something better, understanding. The brain that once sabotaged your trades has become your greatest ally. The emotions that felt like enemies now serve as guides. You're no longer fighting the market or yourself. You're dancing with both. This journey doesn't end here. Every trade is practice. Every loss is education. Every moment of calm you create strengthens the trader you're becoming. The neural pathways you've built will serve you for life, but only if you tend them daily. If this changed how you see yourself, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you want more insights into the trader's mind. Together we're rewriting what it means to succeed in this game, one rewired brain at a time.